Hi, it's Lori from Coast to Coast Craft Girls coming to you from the West Coast. Today I wanted to share a technique that I found that turns what's otherwise a very nice, simple, but beautiful card into a wow card. How do you do it? It's a surprising ingredient, toilet paper. Let me show you how it works. So you can take some toilet paper. You can also use Kleenex. And you're just going to take, I used 4 layers, so tear off 4 squares and fold it over. And you want to get it wet. This is just a spray bottle of plain water. You can use, colored ink or something, but you don't need to. And you want to get it wet enough that it starts to stick together, but not that it falls apart. So don't rub, like I'm soaking up the water off my mat, but don't rub it because it'll fall apart. And if you want to know, this is just Costco toilet paper. It's not Charmin or anything fancy. And then I'm going to take my embossing folder, stick the toilet paper in your embossing folder, and run it through. Now I run it through, I'm going to run it through my MIDI. This is a 3D embossing folder, so normally this would just go straight through your MIDI. I'm actually going to use my metal shim to give it just a little bit more of an oomph. And when you open it up, look at the emboss on that. It's pretty incredible. I mean, hopefully you can see that. Let me kind of turn it. You can, a lot of times you can see the deboss side even better. Now, this is wet, so you want to just set it aside and let it dry. So I'm just going to set it over here to dry. And I have this one that I did that is already dry. Now, what I did is I fussy cut out, and I did the same thing. So there were 3 of them, and I fussy cut them out. So, but I didn't do this one yet because I'm going to show you how I did it. So it's pretty easy. You don't have to be exact. And when you're fussy cutting, you don't move your scissors, you move the paper or the whatever you're cutting. And you just kind of rotate around. And I didn't make it anywhere close to exact. I just kind of followed the edges and tried to not have like straight lines. So as long as you're kind of turning the paper every so often so that you don't have any real super straight lines, you're fine. And you can go pretty quick. It's actually doesn't take nearly as long as you think it might. Okay, pretty easy. And then, I'm going to wipe up that water. And then you want to color them. And what I used crushed velvet and pale fig. And I just used some little finger daubers. Let me find my, that's not the right one. It's that one. And you just kind of softly rub over it. You don't want to color it completely. You just want to pick up the embossed areas. This is completely dry. I did this yesterday, so, and let it sit overnight. You can use a heat tool to dry it, but I think it's better if you just kind of let it dry on its own. And it dries faster if you don't leave it on like a glass mat. If you set it on something where it can get air around it, or on some paper or something that'll soak up the water. So there's the light purple, which is pale fig, the water reactive spectrum noir. And then I'm going to take crushed velvet, and I don't want to put the dark everywhere. I just want to kind of highlight a few flowers. So So just very lightly touching the top of the emboss because you want it to be somewhat variegated. That's pretty good. It doesn't take much. And then, I don't know if you can see on this one, I used a yellow sparkle pen. This is Sunshine. You always shake to wake. And then just touch the centers of each of the flowers. Literally touch. Don't push down, because after all, it is toilet paper or clean. You can use Kleenex too, and it will absorb. So you don't want to push down. You just want to touch and get a little bit of that yellow sparkle in the center of each flower. And it's better to come back and add a second coat of the yellow than to put too much on the first time. And just look and see if you missed anything. Looks right. So there's my top flowers. Now what I did is I just took a piece of white card. This is 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. I'm just going to put it, center it in my embossing folder. And this is the metal shim from my Gemini Junior. And it's not necessary, but it just gives you that much stronger emboss. Just like that. And then this one, I'm going to do essentially the same coloring, except I'm going to use a bigger pad because I want to go all the way around. So go a little bit quicker. And again, I'm not pushing hard. I'm just rubbing across the tops of that emboss. I don't want the whole thing to be purple. I just want to pick up that raised area and highlight that raised area. Then I'm going to take my finger dauber again with the darker color, and I'm just going to kind of put a few darker highlights here and there. And you're just trying to give it a little bit of dimension by using the different colors. Give it a sense of depth. Keeps it from looking too flat if you can get the different colors in there. That looks pretty good. Then I'm going to use a green, and you can use whether, I think I'm going to use the pine tree. I think in the last one I used spring meadow. I think I'll use pine tree. And we're going to go back with our, actually maybe I'll start with the spring meadow. See what that looks like. And on this one, I'm going to kind of give it a bit of a wash all the way around. But I'm going to go back and highlight the leaves and the stems with the darker green, so I'm not too worried about getting those, but you just want to kind of give it an all-over wash. Okay. I use my little finger dauber to just kind of come back and touch those leaves and the stems so that they stand out from the background. And then I'm going to take my larger one and I'm just going to darken the edges. It just sort of gives the piece a vignette of the darker color. Just like that. Clean up my extra ink. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the yellow spark. I'm going to do the same thing with the yellow sparkle pen. I'm going to go back and just touch the centers of each of those flowers. Okay. Now, I got a 5x7 card, and then I've just got a dark green matte layer, and I'm going to go ahead and matte layer this up and put it on the card, and then I'll add the extra, the toilet paper on top. You could do this technique with cardstock. Oops. With cardstock instead of toilet paper, honestly, or something else, you know, watercolor card, whatever. But I like the texture of this, of the tissue. It's got it's hard to describe, but it's not, it's thicker and it's like almost softer as opposed to a solid cardstock. I personally like the extra white space around. I think it adds a nice frame to it. If you don't, you can use a bigger panel or another matte layer, or you can cut your card base down or something. And then you're going to arrange these on. And the way I did it was, I mean, you could do it, since you fussy cut them out, you could literally decoupage them right on top of the ones that are there, right? Just like that. I kind of liked putting them just off so that it gives you a sense of depth. So it looks like you've got, you know, some in the foreground and some in the background. So I intentionally did them this way because it gives you a sense of flowers, you know, of 3D-ness that I really liked. And you can stack them on top of each other, or, you know, pull them down this way, or however you decide you want them. I might do it about like that. And then I used the Kalal 3D glue gel, which is what's in this, to put them on. Start with the back one and just put 3 or 4 huge globs of glue. Let's set that in there. Just like that. And you don't want to push them down too hard because you want them to have that depth. So see, so they're standing up. I don't know if you can see that very well. And we're going to put this on our card. And I like to just kind of line up the layers, the mats, like that. And you could raise it up, but I'm just going to put it flat. Right about there. And that's it. It's pretty simple. The only thing is letting this stuff dry. And that's how you turn a nice card into a wow card using toilet paper. Pretty fun. You can also, here's this, in this case, I did an embossing folder and then I fussy cut out just the small pieces. Here's one where I did an entire panel. This entire panel is made with toilet paper. Ran it through the embossing folder, inked it up, glued it on a card, and it gives you kind of an interesting, like, rustic feel, almost like rustic paper, because it's kind of peeling around the edges, and where the glue soaked through a little bit, it gives you kind of a distressed look. I really liked the looks of it, and that's what you can do with toilet paper. Hope you enjoyed that.